for coming. I want to thank Ari and his incredible company for hosting another CEC conference. Just a few items, if you'll permit me. I'm exhausted. So we had a 2-hour on our tarmac in Newark today before we flew out. No weather. It was the bathrooms on the plane. Was it? We got your plane? Oh. I'm really very blessed and happy and feel fortunate to be able to moderate this panel for a host of reasons. I know Entain very well. Nick, the CEO of the company I was with in Barcelona at the World Gaming Executive Summit back in December, right, Ishmael, I think it was? And Entain, full disclosure, Martin Linka, who I'm going to make blush. Although we can't see if you're going to blush, but we're going to make you blush. Who is the Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for Entain. Entain is the largest publicly traded online gaming company in the world, based in the UK. They have a massive presence in America and partnered with BetMGM. Entain has been a client of mine, formerly GVC, for 13 years. Martin and I have known each other for a little over 3, and we just had dinner with our ladies on Friday night at a great restaurant. When you come to New Jersey, whenever you're going to get there, at Lunello's, the housewives, Jersey housewives, I've had a couple of scenes there, throwing pizzas at each other and overturning tables like us Italian Americans do all the time. Phil Runyon is another incredible person who I've gotten to know recently. He has a massive company, game holding. He's a CEO. He does blockchain, NFTs. I mean, he is a super knowledgeable guy, and he comes from Holland, Ohio. the good Holland, the friendly Holland. I was supposed to be in Ohio, as I was telling Phil, with Charles Oakley and Bo Gray, which we're going to talk about a little bit, thanks to Martin Licka. Oh, wow, look at this. A little dark in here, Ari. And our third panel member is someone I've known for probably 6-7 years now. We met in Stockholm at an Aventus event in Stockholm, my first time there. Ishmael Valley, who is the founder and CEO of a powerful data tool for regulators called YieldSec, amongst a host of other things that Ishmael will, I'm sure, talk about. So these are 3 extraordinary individuals. Martin is now resident of New Jersey, formerly from the Czech Republic. We have to give our hats off to the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic for meeting with the Ukrainian President Zelensky just a few weeks ago, along with the and some others from Europe. Let's all, try to do what we can to help the Ukraine. What's going on over there is just despicable. It's not anything to do with, in my opinion, Russia or the Russian people. There's one individual there that I think has become a terrorist and is just slaughtering that country. I represent an organization called Paramatch, which is based in the Ukraine. I also sit on a board of a Ukrainian company, Medici. So I was just in the Ukraine in October, and the restaurant that they were so nice to take me out to, which was a Georgian restaurant, is no longer there. It's been decimated. So when I talk to Paramatch every 2 weeks, they're in the subway in Kyiv in tents and sleeping bags, working from their laptops. Thank God they still have Wi-Fi. I don't know how they do. But please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. SBC, Rasmus, who's a dear friend of Martin's, has raised $250,000, and Martin's been helpful with that, as well as others, for humanitarian aid to Ukraine. So please do what you can to help them. I apologize. I just feel very emotional about that. Martin, I would like you to talk about, you're really not good at talking about yourself. I'm going to try to get you to talk about your company, but I'll talk about you. Martin's an extraordinary individual. He's the head of RG. He just won a Global Responsible Gaming Award at the Edison Ballroom in December, I think, early December. So, and well deserved, because Martin is not one of these tough guys that paid for the award. So many of these folks that get awards, Ari, undeserved. Martin's very deserving, because what Entain Foundation, which I felt privileged to sit on with Martin as the chairman of the board for Entain Foundation US, and the former New York Giant Super Bowl winner, Martin. He's a Pats fan. Can you believe that? Amani Toomer also sits on our board. So Martin, I want you, I wish I could poke you, but I want you to talk about the importance of RG, not only in the traditional gaming industry, but for esports. And also I want you to talk about what you've been working on with your colleagues at Entain, your acquisition of Unicorn, and what you're doing in that regard.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, my apologies for not being able to be there in person. Unfortunately, my business travel has taken me elsewhere. I sincerely hope that next time we're doing this, I will be there in person. First of all, let me say amen to everything Bill has very pertinently set out about the Ukraine. And indeed, despite being British on paper and resident of the great garden state of New Jersey, I'm still very much Czech in my heart. So most certainly a prime minister to be very proud of, a brave man. And hopefully the tragic events that the country of Ukraine has lately seen because of that madman in the Kremlin will come to a very swift end. On a less serious note, as he's only too ably demonstrated by now, I'm privileged to have William James Pascal III as my spokesperson, so he can talk to me as much as he likes. I will focus on talking about Entain, and if you pardon the pun, Enchain Entain on you. Indeed, as you might know, Entain, if I may use football-related terminology, and indeed Amani Toomer, we're privileged to have him and all the tricks he knows about teammates that use helmets to catch balls to win Super Bowls. It's great to have him on our foundation board. But indeed, Entain has made a big play and stepped into the esports space, having acquired the Unicorn brand. We are getting ever closer to relaunching it in hopefully a foreseeable future. And it goes without saying that as part of Entain's overall ethos, we are committed to applying the same responsible, if you will, sustainable gambling standards to the Unicorn offering as we have to Entain's offering all around the world. And from my perspective, laying emphasis on efficient, responsible gambling as well as responsible gaming practices is an absolute no-brainer. It's about sustainability of this industry. And by this industry, I mean the gambling industry. But of course, in this particular context, there's a huge overlap between, I would suggest, the gaming or esports industry and those like Entain who have or will have been offering betting opportunities on this industry. So we can most definitely help each other. And perhaps to kick it off and give you a brief example, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to delve into the detail. Entain and the Entain Foundation US launched last year an education, esports focused education campaign together with our great partner called Game Quitters, led by Cam Adair. I reckon most of you would have heard about Cam. And that campaign's called Mind Your Game, and it's really focused not only on responsible gaming practices, but also the wider well-being of esports athletes and other esports players. So hopefully that, as a starter for 10, demonstrates to our commitment to this space, not only on the commercial side of things, but also on the education and responsibility side of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Phil, I want you to talk briefly, please, because I couldn't get Martin to do it. I want you to talk briefly about your co-founding of Holt Gaming, which you've been at since August of 18, and then Nifty Company, which you also co-founded, God bless you, last year in June. And then I want you to get into why RG is important in this space, because that's what they want to hear.
Sure. So working backwards, as I explained in my last panel, that Nifty Co. is a blockchain think tank and accelerator company. It was spun out of wanting to have its own kind of home as a place to kind of play with this tech that was away from the gaming stuff that we were working on in our PvP casino games. In 18, when I started Holt Gaming, it had become very clear after spending, at that point in time, about 8 years in the free-to-play space, free-to-play gaming space, that everybody loved to complain about cheating. You cheated me, you cheated me, you cheated me. I gave you 99 cents, you gave me 8 billion coins, and you cheated me, you cheated me, you cheated me. So I wanted to look at blockchain technology as being, because it is an immutable timestamp ledger, as being a way to certify data, to be able to show you you didn't get cheated, to show that these were the balancing act of mechanics that we have in the game to show that one player got a fair shake as much as the second one did. Aside from that, though, Entain, not Entain, it's funny, I didn't really put that together until we said 5 times here today. Entain is a part of my blockchain family, and so I'm actually here on behalf of them today to talk about a very similar service that's how they view blockchain technology as being a certification of data. If you're an operator, a supplier, and you have compliance requirements, you know exactly what I'm referring to. It's the prove it model, right? We got a complaint, prove it. Such and such said that you are sending them emails after they've opted out, prove it. Or prove that you didn't, even worse. So Entain has put together a data integrity platform called Kensei. And Kensei's role is exactly that. Imagine having as part of your organization 1,000 notaries that are constantly looking over every activity of gameplay, certifying whether or not it occurred or it didn't occur. That's the power of blockchain technology, and especially the Bitcoin SV blockchain, which they use because of its high throughput capacity. This technology is currently integrated in one of the, I would say, one of the most advanced player protection infrastructures that I personally have ever seen in my time, which is called Crucial Compliance, founded by Paul Foster. Some of you may know him as Fozzie. And if you do, you probably had a beer with him. So Paul has built this technology called Crucial Compliance, which integrates directly into your PAM. The data itself sits all within your infrastructure. And the idea is that by taking the markers of harm, which have already been brought to light as being, hey, these are things that should be concerning to you as an operator. This person has been playing normally between this hour and this hour, and all of a sudden they're clocking the clock in the morning. Their buy-ins are accelerating at a crazy rate. They are losing a lot. So making sure that your business today is operating above board, that you are taking player protection seriously, that's really where Crucial Compliance comes in. But having that blockchain technology also future-proofs your business. It allows you to basically say, today we've got a great team, we've got a great VIP team, we totally all agree that player protection is incredibly important, but that's not tomorrow. That person will move on. Somebody else will move into these roles. And there are other people who may not be as inclined to follow all the rules. When everybody knows that data becomes immutable, that you can't just delete it, there's a provenance. You change something and it's going to be brought to light very easily, they're less inclined to be bad actors. And this in turn for your business, whether you're an operator or a supplier, it functions as an insurance policy. Today, tomorrow, forever. So blockchain technology is being leveraged through Crucial Compliance, again, to not necessarily protect players, but what it does is that it protects the players by ensuring that the operators and suppliers are being good actors. They're being responsible. They're doing their part to make sure that these players can continue to play. It's not to bust somebody out. That player is of no good to any of you if they have to go into rehab, if they have to enter self-exclusion list.
Thanks, Phil. Ishmael, so good to see you. Welcome back to America.
Thank you very much.
Ishmael was here for multiple years, working like a phenom marketing with Hard Rock, and created a phenomenal company called The Game Above, which I've had the privilege to be a little bit small involved with. Ishmael's now living in LA and figuring out where he's going to fully plant his flag. But Ishmael, I think what I'd like you to do is two things. Please, first of all, explain a little bit about YieldSec and its power. We have to be careful because we're not here to promote, blah, blah, blah. And the other thing I want you to answer, if you would, why is the age of the player so important with esports?
Understood. So, well, thank you for having me up here today, and thank you for the introduction, Bill. And first of all, I built a product called YieldSec after a long time in this business where I was a marketing director. What I understood very clearly from the marketing challenge we have is that there's a product kind of challenge and dilemma in this business. We all have the same products. How are we going to make those products appeal to an audience? So we can take a brand route, we can take promotion and marketing and bring those customers in. We've been in industry, particularly online, in duality for 2 decades or more, here in the US in particular. Business has had a legal sphere to it, and it's had an illegal sphere. And in America, that's very much the case. What we've had from a consumer level is an understanding that I can just type casino or NFL bets into Google, and I'll find a bunch of sites. And I don't know whether they're legal, I don't know if they're licensed, I don't know if they're regulated. Now that more marketplaces globally are moving towards regulation and a system where we have a contained commercial marketplace, that commercial marketplace contributes to taxation. That commercial marketplace contributes to our commerce and the companies, and the integrity of their share values also contributes to investors and pension funds. There is a social compact then between societies that are allowing gaming as a business to be a for-profit enterprise, and what society expects in return is that this is legal, fair, fun and entertaining, and responsible, and that players are looked after where they have problems, and that consumers can get entertainment from this. On one side of it, you've got the legal licensed companies like Entain, which are in more regulated markets than I think any other operator in the world. Then you've got a whole sphere of thousands and thousands of black market sites. So I saw a problem coming in what's called channelization, how you legalize and regulate a market, and how you then move players over to the light side of the industry, the legal side, where they are protected, where the contribution from that industry goes towards our society in taxation contributions. So a few years ago, instead of just talking at conferences like this and telling people that I could see that the sky was slightly falling and the problems coming, I decided to focus on building a product. That product is YieldSec, and we built a platform that basically looks at everything on the internet. We find all the opportunities for commercial betting, gaming, lotteries, and esports. So if there is an opportunity to bet and gamble, if there's a commercial connection to it, so people are making money from it, we know it's there. And we provide that information to state governments, national governments, to law enforcement agencies, to the legal companies like Entain, and to social media platforms to choke off the supply of advertising and the oxygen of customers that provide money to the black market unknowingly. This is not a player issue. There's no way that we're going to be able to educate players to the extent that they understand what's legal and what's illegal. Lots of black market sites will also just throw a kind of Nevada Gaming Commission logo on there, or a DGE, the New Jersey Gaming Commission logo, on their website and app to suggest that they're clean and legal and regulated, and they're not. So I saw that we needed a solution for us as an industry, and that's to bring us back into the light, to make sure that the media conversation we're having today tries to look at the legal licensed industry as the only thing that betting and gaming represents, and it's not. The total marketplace is made up of legal and illegal actors at the moment, and we need something to push those illegal actors out of the industry and make sure that the revenue accrues to the legal industry, and that legal industry contributes to tax and fulfills that social compact. So that's what we've done with YieldSec, is set ourselves up with the platform and the products to help achieve that. touching on your question of the kind of why age is important here. There's an age limit involved in all forms of gaming, because we see this as a product that basically, we know that societies are taking the view, again, that social compact between society and an industry. We have products that have risks, okay? If we want to become like cigarettes or alcohol in the future and be over-regulated, we need to ensure that we are setting up the kind of criteria for how we wish to operate going forward. Having an age limit and having that acknowledged as part of something that before it gets to the point where state governments and national governments are having to tell us it's age 21 for esports, the same as everything else. We need to be pushing out a kind of agenda of we're taking care of our own house, we're putting things in order ourselves as an industry. So it's important that here in Nevada, where we are today, it's important that Nevada Gaming Commission have already taken steps to have the first esports committee. On that committee, there's law enforcement, there's the regulatory side, the treasury side, the state government, and there's also operators like Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard. They also sit on that committee to help shape what those rules will be and have age verification as part of that. Because we know that this audience will age. So even if a lot of the participants in esports are going to be teenagers, they are going to age into becoming potential betting, gaming, and lottery customers. At that point, we need to ensure that when they mature through, Sal from Agua Caliente was saying earlier, we need to ensure that we're looking at that evolutionary stage to play a life cycle. So it's vital to make sure that we have an age restriction and an age limit that's been adhered to.
Thank you, Ishmael. You know, when Eric Weiss, former regulator, now a massive principal in a consulting firm, unfortunately, he can't do work in Jersey for another 18 months, but I can't wait till that expires. But as Eric knows, Martin, I know Phil and Ishmael know, when we were lobbying in New Jersey to bring about wagering on esports, which we just had the first license holder receive certification and licensing from the DGE, EEG. They just had their first tournament at Hard Rock, which Eric was at. One of the things I was frustrated with, and never heard it while I was lobbying for the greater part of 11 years to get PASPA repealed with folks like Senator Lesniak and Senate President Sweeney, Governor Christie, who I hold in very high regard to have the courage while he's trying to run for president of the United States to take on in a Republican primary the issue of sports betting. That's not an easy thing to do. But one of the things I never heard in all of the jurisdictions I testified in on sports betting, particularly, because I think that's most paralleled to what we're talking about, was concern about age. We know that there are jockeys in horse racing that are under 21. We know that you can bet on horses in America at the age of 18. And so tracks that have casinos and sports betting and other offerings have to be very careful of watching the house and the integrity of the house and who can bet and who can't bet because their license is in jeopardy. But one of the things that frustrated me most is legislators who were trying to do the right thing, legalize or regulate, would always focus on the age of the player. You know, there are tons of baseball, basketball, hockey athletes that are underage. How come nobody's raised that issue when we were talking about repealing PASPA and legalizing and regulating sports betting? And that has a bit of barriers to legalization for this industry. But we're going to get beyond that, because what Jersey did by sticking their toe in the water and regulating and legalizing wagering on esports is a good thing, because it does three things that we all argued during sports betting, Phil and Ishmael and Martin and myself, was in order to deal with the black market, you must regulate. In order to track problem gambling, you must regulate. And in order to have consumer protection, you must regulate. Legislators are starting to understand that. Remember, there aren't many states in the nation, 7, who legalized online gaming. We're upwards of almost 28, 29 states that have legal sports betting. The power of esports, I am a massive believer in. But one of the things that can get in the way of progress for all of you to profit from the hard work you've done for many years in the industry is to ignore the issue of integrity and responsible gaming. And what I've been fortunate to be able to explain across the globe, as a matter of fact, in Kiev, Barcelona, London, Australia a few weeks ago, we'll be back in London at ICE, hopefully we'll see many of you there, is responsible gaming. I'm not here to preach, I'm not a preacher. I'm the son of a politician, so I hear him preach to me all the time. But I'm not here to preach to you that it's the right thing to do, because it is, but it's the commercially responsible thing to do. It's the viable thing to do. So Mark, I am tired of hearing people talk about the problem of problem gambling. I want to hear more talk about a comprehensive solution. It reminds me of politicians who preach to us about how much they support cops and firemen when they're at their funerals. But what are they doing between those funerals? Our future is dependent upon everyone in this room and the leadership of esports, the developers, the players, the gamers, to understand sustainable esports is built upon a foundation of understanding the significant importance of responsible gaming. So Mark, we don't want to talk about the problem anymore. What is a comprehensive solution to address the problem look like?
Thank you, Bill. I do agree. Well, let me put it this way. I don't think that there's no massive issue with talking about the problem. That still must be done, but not in isolation. Indeed, we have identified, or we continue identifying the problem. We continue identifying its scope, but at the same time, I can't agree more. We do need collectively, you've talked about gambling operators, title publishers, the players themselves, and then pretty much all the folks out there who are involved or even not involved and are exposed either to esports or the wider sports betting bonanza of late by means of advertising or by means of wagering themselves. We all do need to come together to start addressing the problem we have identified by means of devising and crucially and critically implementing solutions that will take us to the world whereby we can safely say that this is an industry that is sustainable in the long run. And just to echo to what both Phil and Ishmael have very eloquently and very pertinently already said, it's not as though all these tiny little issues, for want of better praise, they're not tiny, they're not little either, but these issues do not sit in a silo. So we do need to make sure that the whole ecosystem of regulated market or markets is indeed protected from the tentacles of those operators who are not prepared to play it by the book, operators that may have perhaps licenses from tiny little rocks in the Caribbean. So that is it's one of the critical part of the ecosystem. Phil touched up on the point that as an industry, we've been collecting a lot of data by means of technology, be it blockchain or other pieces of technology. We do need to put and Entain, as Bill put it, I hate to toot my own horn, but let me toot the horn of my company. Entain has been for years by now using the data of the customers that we collect, of course, with their consent, and then we anonymize it and aggregate the data. We've been using that data combined with scientific advice and research to further improve our sustainable gambling tools. It's no longer good enough, with all due respect, to just have self-exclusion protocols and some limits on the website. The more we can individualize the tools, the gambling control tools and protocols we offer to our customers, actually regardless of their affiliation to any gambling category, be it betting on esports, betting on the NFL, playing roulette, the more efficient these tools are and the more sustainable we will have become as an industry. So to quickly give you a brief example as to how we've been trying to approach it, really a combination of two critical factors when it comes to the tools or the responsible gambling controls that we've started offering to our customers. So first of all, on the basis of the data, we would establish customers' behavioral patterns. And as soon as a customer starts deviating from those patterns, then there's logically an action to be taken. It elicits a reaction. We would give it maybe as simple and as straightforward as giving a customer a ring and asking that customer, look, you okay? We've noticed a change. You may be spending a little more on your gambling. Are you okay? And the customer may come back and say, yeah, it's totally fine. I've been lucky and privileged enough to have landed a pay rise. So it's all good. But we would still check and we would continue checking that customer's behavior. So really, long story short, the first category of criteria is deviation from a customer's norm, be it money-wise, be it in terms of frequency of play or time spent on the website, different habits during the day or night. And the other key category of criteria relates to absolute numbers. Of course, if somebody is spending thousands and thousands of dollars on his or her gambling, or spends all days long on the website, that clearly indicates there is something wrong. That really has been baked into the DNA of Entain's approach to responsible gambling. Try to be as tailor-made as possible, and at the same time, and I will shut up in a second, on the basis of all these criteria, first of all, give any customer a chance to pause and think while recommending to the customer an appropriate responsible gambling control. So we would do that before intervening by any more drastic means. But then in some instances, limited instances, but important instances, we would have no choice but take over control of the website while the customer is playing and try to, or we would steer the customer towards help options and ultimately, if required, treatment. So a very long story short, I believe this is the only way to achieving a long-term sustainability of this industry, including esports and the interplay between esports and gambling on or betting on esports.
Thank you, Martin. I don't think there's anybody in this room that would disagree that problem gambling is a concern, right? I think we all agree with that. And I think we all agree that during the pandemic, we've seen spikes in problem gambling because it often is used as a coping mechanism. I have to stand because I'll fall if I don't stand, because I feel extremely passionate. I am sick and tired of many of my clients in this industry thinking they've checked the box by putting a 1-800 number. That's not being compassionate and caring, being socially responsible, in my opinion. The 1-800 number is great, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. What I want Ishmael Valley to talk to us about, how many people are aware of what happened in the UK with problem gambling? Does anybody know the history? Because he does. Martin does, and Phil does too, but I want Ishmael who's the most recent arrival from the UK to the US, to talk about what happened there, thousands of online gaming companies, massive marketing, and what happened, Ishmael.
Thank you, Bill. So look, that's a very nice introduction as well. Thank you. So from the European side, it's not just Britain, but Britain probably has the oldest, historically, the oldest legalized marketplace going back to the late 1800s. That we've had open, legal forms of all forms of gambling have been allowed. Casinos, sports betting, everything's been available. We have a very small black market in the UK today because of that huge kind of legal allowance. So there are more than 1,000 licensees in the UK, and that's probably a figure that would frighten people here, where we're used to 20, 30 licenses in each state. But what you are not seeing in the US is that there are thousands of unlicensed, illegal, criminally funding sites that are there and have been there for 20 plus years. So in the UK, the problems that we built up basically is one of the first countries in the world to legislate a regulated market regime. 2005 Gambling Act in the UK was initially seen as a great piece of legislation. It allowed for a light touch regulatory regime. It allowed for oversight from the Gambling Commission. It allowed for the industry to pretty much police itself and make up its own rules. And everything was seen as, well, we need to do something about this. We need to introduce legality now. But it wasn't seen as introducing regulation now in 2005. Initially, lots of European territories, we were still a member of the EU, the British legislation. And it's led to this position in Europe where it is a complete mess right now. So you've seen countries that have regulated, like the United Kingdom in 2005. They're re-regulated in 2011. They are re-regulating now, and we're probably going to see some of the most significant change in the gaming industry in the United Kingdom ever, historically. It's got to a point with the media where the media see gambling companies, the legal licensed gambling companies, are seen as the problem. And the media run this kind of blame, name, fine and shame routine. That basically any kind of breach of the regulations, any breach of guidelines, or even a player coming to the media and saying, I lost my job, my value of my house, my marriage, because of my gambling problem, they're blaming the responsible licensed gaming companies for that. What they're not looking at is those players basically would be self-excluded. Those players would go through what Martin just mentioned, that there are kind of ways to steer customers to the curb to say, we're going to have to time you out, we're going to have to give you a cooling off period, because we've seen from the data that you have changes in your behavior that are worrying us as a legal licensed operator. Customer may not agree with that at the time, because in the midst of that kind of mental health crisis that gambling addiction represents, what they're going through is something that they're going to react to, go on Google, find another site who will not put them through any checks, balances, KYC, anti-money laundering, anti-fraud checks. They will end up with black market sites again, because they're openly available on Google. We even find in markets like Sweden, for example, Sweden had an open black market, some call it grey at the time. They announced in 2018 that they were going to legalize from the 1st of January 2019. There were more than 500 unlicensed casinos in Sweden in 2018, just targeting the Swedish market. They only had Swedish language versions of their sites. They were only looking for Swedish customers. They only had Swedish payment methods. On January the 1st, there were 90 licensees. So I'd asked the question of the Swedish Parliament and the regulator at the time, where did the other 410 sites go to? Did they all just pack up their tents and go home? Decided that they didn't want to run a business anymore, they'd been in it for 20 years. Absolutely not. Those sites are still running today. So the problem is that if you don't bring as many people in as possible, you are going to end up building up steam in a problem gambling nightmare that will not go away. And it will be something that's underground, because it's being entertained with, is going to the black market. So all of that kind of energy will go from basically the legal license sites. They'll receive fines if they don't follow the rules. They are being policed already. If you then push that activity into the black market, where we will not see it as a society, we will not see it as a regulator, and we will not see it from the legal perspective either, until it's too late. And what we're now seeing in the UK is basically problem gambling at levels where we don't know where we know what the iceberg is above the water, we're not seeing what it is below the water. And that's an issue for all of us going forward. So bringing in regulation is something that the legal industry wants. It's something that we've adapted to. We want to be compliant. The problem is painting a target on that black market to say, as an evolutionary change out of having had no regulation and no law to a position where we are now regulating globally. We've reached the tipping point. There are now more regulated markets on Earth than there have ever been. But we still have a way to go in what the regulation needs to be to ensure that there is an ecosystem approach, as Martin said, to looking after all of the points of how do players fall into that black market hole? How do players end up without any kind of regime to help them when they fall over? How do we also make sure that the revenue coming into the legal industry is maximized so that there is consequent flow of taxation? Look at a state like New Jersey, where basically the amount of tax contributed by the legal gaming industry in New Jersey creates the education budget and education opportunities. Without that, you are in a different state altogether, basically.
Thank you, Ishmael. Phil, I want to tee this up for you, and then we're going to take some questions. How many folks here have a background or any experience or currently in the brick and mortar casino industry? Anyone? Ah, beautiful. Okay. Here's a question, you can shout it out. Traditionally, who is the VIP customer for the retail casino industry? Does anybody know who the VIP customer is, the demographic of that customer? It's the problem gambler. Forever, casinos, and I represent them, so I'm not speaking ill of them. Casinos looked at the VIP customer or the problem gambler as the VIP customer. They could give a hoot what that person had to deal with when they left the casino, putting their mortgage money down, their gasoline money down, their food money down, children, significant others suffering. That's the beauty of what you all have the power to solve. The digitization of the gaming industry has given us metrics, thanks to people like Phil and Entain producing the data to enable us to really understand better. And listen, my father was a school teacher before he was a politician, so I think I can say this. Academic research is critical. But academic research 10, 20 years ago in America didn't have the data. It wasn't there. Problem gambling was like a guess. Phil, please educate us on how the tools you bring to the table with blockchain and other important data points help regulators and help address problem gambling.
Sure. So a common theme I think you're hearing right now is that player protection is obviously front and center for Entain. As an example, I know Crucial Compliance, their customers, which include William, I hope I can say this out loud, William Hill, 888, and there's another one in there. I can't remember another very common name. Sorry if I'm not supposed to say that. Anyways.
Freedom of speech here.
It's on their website. I'm in America. I can say whatever the fuck. I can say whatever the hell I want. See, you get me going. That's what happens. So what?
I can't believe they talk like that in Holland.
Very kind people. So basically what we're talking about here is that blockchain technology allows you to be able to work interoperably. And this is the problem right now that you're seeing in the UK that Ishmael was just talking about. You can be as great as Entain and put together the best player protection program in the world. But if everybody's not playing by the exact same rules because the regulators have not painted the entire industry with the proper guidance. And so one company may say, hey, look, you've lost more than 500 quid. Dollars, damn it, I'm not in London right now. You've lost more than $500. We need to do a check on you to make sure that you can even afford this, an affordability check. Whereas somebody else might have a ceiling of $750. Somebody might say, hey, on Tuesday, I've got a really bad gambling problem. I go to GameStop and I put in Phil at niftyco.io. And on Wednesday, I decide, you know what? Just kidding, YOLO. We're going to go ahead and take a spin again at another casino. Except now I go back into GameStop. They look me up, but my credentials that I have are philip.runyon@gmail.com, my personal email address. It's this type of bullshit and a lack of interoperability and data, which is what leaves you all exposed to issues like what Ishmael is saying, where these people are now, they're in the press. It's not enough to take, $1 million or $1 million in a fine from a regulator, but you have to now take it in the court of public opinion. You bad, bad people, look at what you did. Shame on you. All these things can be alleviated if A, you all agree that you're going to share data, but it needs to be anonymized. Nobody's talking about giving up your VIP player list, your email addresses, your phone numbers, your physical addresses. If you guys are working through technologies like blockchain, it allows you to be able to pull this data and start to make real decisions based upon real data. So that's exactly what Entain has done through their Kensei platform, their data integrity platform. Saying, hey, look, we captured this data. The data is what it is. We don't care what it is, but it is what it is. And we can validate this is the time and date that occurred, maybe the player ID, which is predicated on their actual information, right? Information they use to pass their AML and KYC compliance. So it doesn't matter if it's Phil or Philip. I had to use my physical license, like here in the United States, to be able to scan that in and take a selfie to be able to get access to iGaming opportunities. So it doesn't care if I'm Phil or Philip, it just knows this is the data. That data should be shareable to all the parties. And so that's really what we're trying to accomplish here through Entain, as well as our player protection tools, or tooling for player protection, I should say, which is, look, you guys should be working together hand in hand, because as Dina Titus's legislative director told me on the phone, if you guys don't get your shit together, they'll do it for you. And there are no 9 scary words. What Ronnie Reagan told us, which is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Isn't that the truth? So listen, are there any questions? Does anyone have a question? I think we have a microphone here. Thank you. I was wondering where it went. Thought I was having a hallucination. No questions. Okay, so if you do have questions and you're just shy, because I can't imagine there are no questions, Ishmael, Phil, and Martin are all on LinkedIn, as am I. Don't hesitate to connect. We are one headline away. The industry, I'm not just talking specifically about esports. We are one headline away from the regulators coming down like a ton of bricks. When that headline happens, there's no putting your finger in the dike. The floodgates will open. So I believe that's why Ari, thank you very much for having us, why he had the thought to create content to show you most gaming companies would say to Martin, why are you wasting your time with that? It doesn't generate revenue. Martin's response is, it may not generate revenue, but if we don't address it, we won't have revenue. And that's the important message here. It's got to be comprehensive. That goes from a 1-800 number to game blocking, to self-exclusion, to making sure blockchain's involved, that YieldSec is working with the regulators, and that there's therapy for addicted gamblers. There's no cure, but ongoing therapy helps. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Let's have a great conference.
Thank you, Martin, Michael, all the way from Brazil. Next time we'll have you back in the States. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Ishmael.
Take care, Martin.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
So our next talk is, I guess it's 3 o'clock? Yeah, 3 o'clock. It is the monetized peer-to-peer skill-based system of competition. And that's basically going to be our next speakers. Becky Harris. Get this right. So anyway, we'll have those people come up on the panel and they'll do the introductions. Peter Gann is going to be up here from Royal Winds. And if anybody is not in the room, this is all being streamed live, so you can go on the CEC YouTube channel, and it's being streamed live there. If you just happen to be about town, you want to check out what's happening. Ben Fetterman, you on this panel? Not yet? Okay. So Peter Gann's going to come up. Becky Harris, I think. Make sure I got everybody Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Peter Gans, Becky Harris, Glenn Platt, and Abu Najia, and he's being streamed in. So just stay patient. We'll get it all together. Thank you.
Do you want us to go up?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna, I don't see
At the
Abu up
podium?
here. Huh?
Where do you want me?
You can be at the table or at the, wherever you want.
Okay, we have 4, right? We actually only have 3 in person, so yeah, I could be at the table. Is Robert Rippey here today?